So, Wurriki Nyal Civic Precinct for Geelong and my colleagues here worked together. Interestingly, we started this project in 2018, so the project and the design almost had been completed much earlier on. So, acknowledgement of country, I've already done that today, but Geelong and this project took a big lens on engaging with the Aboriginal Indigenous of the country, so you'll see that through. This project was quite a different approach. This wasn't about tendering as an architect, this was tendering the whole of the project. So we worked with collaborators like QE and BESEX, and essentially we're going in from a bigger precinctual approach. So the precinct itself has a few elements coming to it. The building we're talking about is stage 1 and was about creating a new civic precinct for Geelong. The site itself very much connected and central to the education, the civic and the arts precinct, and of course real clean connections back to the CBD and shopping precinct. Very important project from a regional perspective and what we were delivering to regional architecture throughout Australia. The project vision had some really clear guidelines from the very beginning. Once engaged and once we won the project, we worked very much with Geelong Council to put these vision statements together. So creating a civic space, creating something for the people was actually their priority. One council, one workplace coming together, and then the elements of integrating sustainability, Aboriginal culture, and also giving back and creating new industry in Geelong was part of our brief. The big idea for us was this public platform, openness to for the people, an active podium to invite people through, and then a vibrant workplace that sat above all of that. The other element that we intertwined through was being uniquely Geelong, and this spoke really true to our client because connecting with a lot of people are in Geelong for a reason, and to be able to represent that was a big part of our new project. And these principles came through in the workplace principles. Yes, we connected with the uniquely Geelong, but we also added a lot of elements that were about connecting with humans and people and how they were going to interact with the space. This is the final result. So the new building, all the greenery is just fresh and quickly growing, but this was about bringing openness and space that people can connect and feel invited to. There was a lot of engagement with landscape about how the Civic Plaza was going to be engaged and how both customers were invited through to the precinct, but also the staff that worked here. We've got 850 staff located in this building. You can start to see a bird's eye view of the landscaping plan. All of the elements were about how people engage with the space. The yarning circle was very much about how business comes together, how people talk, how we connect. The building's essentially made up of 7 levels. You can start to see how that transcribes. A unique piece for us was we were engaged to design the building and the workplace at the same time. So working with Geelong's Clever Together team was a big part of the engagement, and we worked with them for over 3-4 years to get to where we are now and rethought about how we were coming together. The planning principles came through. You can start to see where the hub is connected, but the architecture about natural light and how that's connecting through was really important to us. Vistas out to the views, given the low height of our building and how we connected through, were drivers. Indigenous palette, and we call it an Indigenous palette because we had this approved by the elders. So the colour palettes, each carpet that we selected, that was all part of the engagement and drove this story about representing country. And so ground was representing water through to level 4 representing sky. So we had a base palette which was very much driven by the architectural elements, and then we gave the complementary through how we connected to country. And that came through in the patterning on the external screening, how they celebrated the opening of the building. ESD for this workplace was amazing, partly because we could intertwine with the architecture of the building. So being able to bring this through, all of it, it has all your bells and whistles, but us coming in early gave us the opportunity to celebrate this. A hybrid structure meant that we could test elements on a scale of building that we haven't had traditionally, and what that meant for the interiors was this was our starting palette. So to have this as your starting palette, we worked very hard with the architectural team about making sure that we could get services through so you could start to see those cutouts. It was all pre-designed in, so we didn't have to work out how all of that went through as we started to build. EOT, car park, that was all part of the offering, and very much about celebrating a different and higher quality commercial offer that people are used to in Melbourne CBD, but typically won't see in regional Australia. This is the main entry to Wurriki Nyal, which means to speak together, and created the new civic heart. So the idea of this was it's open, lightness, connected, and visual links through to the podium level. That was very much about how people come together. The materials used throughout are raw and connected to the land, but also robust, because this is about community. This is about anyone and everyone coming through to this space. Connection to country. So the public realm was about how people came together. And then you can start to see the civic heart and how those visuals come through the space. The customer service area, about being inviting, providing different settings rather than just your traditional counter where you get serviced across. It's about people coming together in different ways. You can start to see a commercial lobby. This is where the staff engage. And then a community platform on that level 2 that starts to talk about how community come together and how they can celebrate this space differently. And also this is open for them to come and use and work and hire it out for community events. The workplace itself, we had a few driving and settings that drove the planning throughout, so different settings typical of a workplace, but they were all banked in different ways, and then you can start to see where we've got our stairs that are highlighted and run throughout the building. Images of the end result, so you can start to see that timber come through and how that was then celebrated through the colours that were themed on every floor. Settings were really important, and how those settings opened up to the workspaces, how we connected with the external areas and the visuals throughout. The waterhole was about how people came together, so we had the big central hub and connected spaces, but given the scale of the space, introducing intimate settings, whether they were the smaller T-points or the breakaways, were critical. And then we had a lot of this integrated collaborative seating, which is part of that central hub area. Meeting and focus rooms central to the area, so as to allow natural light throughout, so the circulation through these spaces were very clear, and there was a big element of integrating that Indigenous artwork, and you can see the artists and their work coming through. The circulation stairs that runs through the whole entire building has these beautiful graphics that were interlaced, engaged by the same artist, Kate James. And you can see these, and they interchange as you go from floor to floor. So that engagement and how we celebrated both our ideas as well as the bigger ideas came through in the building.